We are back today with our novel, I Survived the Tornado, the Joplin Tornado 2011, and we're on Chapter 5. The timestamp for Chapter 5 says, the next day, May 22nd, 1:30 p.m. Mom was tutoring one of her students after church, so it was just Dad and Dex waiting on the porch when Dr. Gage zoomed into the driveway. He hopped out of the SUV and came rushing over to Dad. They hugged each other like long-lost brothers. Zeke seemed happy to see Dr. Gage, too. Of course, Dad insisted on a personal tour of Dr. Gage's SUV, which had been especially equipped for storm chasing. There were the extra strong metal plates bolted to the sides to protect from flying rocks and debris. There were oversized tires for driving at high speeds across flooded fields and rocky ditches. The cluster of antennas gave Dr. Gage instant access to the latest weather data. And that was just the outside. Inside were 3 different computer screens, all mounted to the dashboard. There was even a mini freezer in the back, for keeping hailstones frozen, Dr. Gage explained, grinning like a kid showing off a new Lego set. When they finished with the tour, Dr. Gage told them about their plan for the day. He and Dex would be chasing a big storm that was charging in from the west. It's already a supercell. Dex knew that supercells were the most violent and dangerous thunderstorms, the storms that could unleash tornadoes. We'll head over to Galena and see if we can catch it as it heads north. Here's a picture. Inside Dr. Gage's SUV, you can see everything that the book told us about. Oops, sorry. And then plus we see Zeke is in there and Dex. And Dr. Gage had a surprise for them. Dex will be helping me with a research project. It turned out Dr. Gage had been working with a team of scientists. We're trying to figure out if a tornado makes a sound just as it's beginning to form inside a storm. The cry of a baby tornado, Dad said. Dr. Gage chuckled. In a way, we believe some animals can sense when a tornado is coming, long before it touches down. Our theory is that they can detect sounds that we humans can't hear. Fascinating, Dad said. If there really are those sounds, and we can find a way to detect them, we could have much earlier warning before tornadoes touch down. Tell us about the research, Dad said. Dr. Gage's face lit up. He hit a button on his keychain, which popped open the tailgate of his SUV. Inside was a large cardboard box filled with metal balls. Each was the size of an apple. I call these sound pods, Dr. Gage said, handing one to Dad and one to Dex. Each has a little recording instrument inside. The metal ball was surprisingly light. How do you get them up into the storm clouds, Dad asked. That's the fun part, Dr. Gage said. He reached behind the box and brought out what looked like a toy rifle. It used to be a paintball gun, Dr. Gage said. I tinkered with it, added a wider barrel, so now it's my official sound pod launcher. He loaded one of the silver balls into the barrel and handed the rifle to Dad. Give it a try, he said. Dad smiled excitedly as he aimed the rifle into the blue sky. He pulled the trigger. Poofed! The ball hissed out of the gun, a silver blur, and then pop! A small balloon inflated in the sky, like a mini parachute. But instead of drifting down, the balloon shot up further into the sky. The balloon will lift the sound recorder up about 10,000 feet, Dr. Gage explained, and the sounds are transmitted back to my lab. So far, I've collected sounds from 15 different storms. Any theories yet? Dad asked. Some, Dr. Gage said, looking at Dad. Sure you can't come along today? Dad shook his head sadly. The graduation starts at 3, he said. But how about you join us for dinner tonight? We can talk more then. Dr. Gage agreed, and they said their goodbyes. Dex couldn't decide who looked sadder about being left behind, Dad or the dog. Dr. Gage turned on the engine, and the 3 computer screens came to life. Dex studied the screen in front of him, which showed a weather radar map. Splotches of different colors pulsed on the screen like jellyfish. There's our storm, Dr. Gage said, pointing to a patch of blood red. His eyes narrowed. It's going to be a monster. Chapter 6. They headed out through the downtown, the oldest part of Joplin. I love this street, Dr. Gage said, admiring the brick and stone buildings that had been watching over Main Street for more than 100 years. That used to be my great-grandfather's diner, Dex said as they passed a squat brick building that was now a gift shop. How long has your family been in Joplin? Dr. Gage asked. Since 1925, Dex said. My great-grandfather came here when he was 16. Dr. Gage raised his eyebrows. You're Joplin royalty, Dr. Gage said. Dex had to laugh as he imagined a king eating Mom's Saturday night chili or a princess lounging on the couch covered with Zeke's fur. Dex loved his house, but it wasn't exactly a castle. I bet Joplin is a great place to grow up, Dr. Gage said. It is, Dex nodded, surprised how much he meant it. Sure, there were more exciting places. Mike Strum was always bragging about his family's trips to New York City, where the buildings scraped against the clouds, or Las Vegas, where wild parties lasted all night. In Joplin, the tallest rooftops were mostly the church steeples, and the best parties were backyard barbecues. Dex knew that one day he'd travel the world, but he also knew he'd always be happy to come home to Joplin. The land flattened out, so they drove toward Kansas, and soon there was nothing but bright green cornfields. Dex scanned the sky, which was clear blue, except for some hazy clouds. It was hard to imagine that a violent storm was somewhere nearby. They came upon a beat-up pickup truck on the side of the road. At the edge of the field, a young man and woman were standing there, video cameras aimed up at a patch of gray clouds. Dex guessed they were storm chasers, too. Dr. Gage smiled wide as he pulled up next to them and rolled down his window. Jimmy, Sarah, how are you? He called out. Norm, the two chorused. Hey, Jimmy, how's your leg? Dr. Gage asked. 30 stitches, Norm, but healing up nicely. Sarah, keep your buddy out of trouble today, will you? I want you guys to be careful. We promise, Norm, said Sarah, her brown eyes shining out through round glasses. Who's your assistant? This is Dex James. His dad and I went to college together. Dex was relieved Dr. Gage didn't reveal how they'd met yesterday, with Dex almost getting squashed by Dr. Gage's SUV. Dex, Jimmy said, you know you're chasing with one of the best guys in the world. Dex smiled. We're heading northwest, Dr. Gage said. What about you? We'll probably see you later, Sarah said. You going to get some pods into the sky? We're about to, Dr. Gage said. You both take care, and seriously, be careful. After they'd driven away, Dr. Gage told Dex how Jimmy had got his 30 stitches. Last month, he and Sarah were chasing in Mississippi, and they got too close to an EF5 tornado. Dex knew that EF5 tornadoes are the strongest tornadoes according to a system called the Enhanced Fujita Scale, which scientists use to rate the strength of tornadoes. An EF1 is the weakest, a breeze funnel or little rope tornado that can knock over a chicken coop, but not much else. The EF5s are the killers, the violent twisters that wipe out whole towns. The wind shifted, Dr. Gage explained, and the tornadoes they were chasing started chasing them. Their car got thrown, and Jimmy sliced open his leg. Luckily, the tornado changed direction again and missed them, but they could have been killed. Dr. Gage shook his head like a worried father. I'm hoping they learned their lesson, he added. Do you really think we're going to see tornadoes today? Dex asked, suddenly wondering if that's what he really wanted. We can never be too sure, not even with our radar and satellites and computers. All we can do is warn that a tornado might strike, and usually we're wrong. That sure was true in Joplin. The tornado sirens went off practically every week, always false alarms. They were like watchdogs that growled at every squirrel. Most people in Joplin ignored the sirens. Can't you see a tornado on the radar? Dex asked. No, Dr. Gage said. You can see clues, high wind speeds, a storm that has what we call rotation or spinning clouds. But tornadoes form deep inside the clouds, hidden from satellites and radar. We don't know a tornado is coming until someone actually sees it with their own eyes. Dex glanced out the window, half expecting a black funnel to explode out of the sky. Dr. Gage went on, but the most dangerous tornadoes are the ones you can't see. They hide behind walls of rain and clouds, and nobody can see them coming. Those are called rain-wrapped tornadoes, right? Dex asked. Dex was showing off. He'd learned that term on Dr. Gage's show. Yes, we call them black walls of death. Dex didn't like the sound of that. Have you ever been up close to one of those? Dr. Gage didn't answer at first. Too close, he said, finally looking at Dex. He pulled up the sleeves of his shirt, and Dex tried not to gasp. There was a thick purple scar zigzagging from Dr. Gage's wrist up to his elbow, as though a monster had tried to chew off his arm. What happened? Dex asked. Dr. Gage took a deep breath. And then, as they drove through the cornfields of Kansas, Dr. Gage told him the story of the tornado that nearly killed him. That's where we're stopping today.